Hey Joe. So I really like the invitation. I think it's fine just the way it is. But when I looked at it, I thought there were two things that could be done that would make it a bit better. And it's a good Photoshop exercise. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. The first thing is I'd like this airplane to be more centered on the invitation. And I'd like to put these clouds, this cloud and this cloud, behind the plane rather than in front of it. So here's the final product just to show you. It's more centered and the clouds are behind rather than in front. So how can we do that in the fewest number of steps? Alright, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to just open the one layer that has the photo of the plane and the guy. Let's see, so if you hit Alt and then over the eye, that's the only one that opens. So what I did, I hit the Alt key and I clicked the little eye. So this is the only one that's open. So let's just highlight that layer, hit move, and just using the right arrow key, move it over so it's more toward the center. That looks pretty good. Alright, now let's zoom in a little bit. We're going to take the marquee tool here and we're going to make a selection from the very edge of the blue all the way up so that it almost hits the plane but includes some of those clouds. See what I did there? So it doesn't hit the plane here, but it takes a slice. Now let's hit Command or Control J and put that on its own layer. And then let's make the layer that we were just on invisible. So now all we're left with is this thin strip that we just put on a new layer. Now, if we go under Image, not Image, we go under Edit and look for Content Aware Scale. Now what we're going to do, this highlights this area, and if we drag out this left-sided one to the edge, it just basically stretches that whole thing out. So let's hit the little check mark and then re-highlight that layer, and look what we did. We just stretched out that little edge, so now the plane is a little more centered and these clouds drape off to the side and we're closer to the middle. Okay, so that's the first thing we accomplished. We put the plane more in the middle. Now, let's hit Command or Control E and combine that with the layer below it. So now we're left with, again, the initial picture, which is now more centered. Now let's use, again, the marquee tool, and let's just make a little square selection around the area that we're interested in eliminating that cloud on. Hit Command or Control J, that puts it on a separate layer. Let's hide the layer below it, and let's magnify that up a little bit. And now what we want to do is we want to basically put this cloud behind it. Now what I'm going to do is use the clone tool, and I'm going to, under Window, open the clone source window. I don't know if you've seen this window, but this allows you, see this little angle thing here? This allows you to change the direction or the angle of what you're cloning so that we can reproduce this curve that's over the cloud. So I experimented around. I believe -10 is a good place to start here. Let's do that. -10. I type that in that little space, -10. And then we're on the clone tool. Let's grab this area right here to the left of the cloud, including some of the darker area and some of the sky, and hit Alt and click. And then let's move it over and look what we accomplished. So see, that changes the angle. So now that angle more closely matches. So let's click that. That'll copy that. Let's try one more. That looks pretty good. And then it looks like if we keep doing that, it's going to come a little bit short. So let's change the angle now to -8. Okay, and I'm going to position that and click on it. And if we do that again, pretty close. Okay, so now that line is pretty good. That line is pretty good. There's other stuff to clean up here. So let's, on that same highlighted layer that we're just on, let's make a mask. So hit the little tool here, the mask tool, and then we're going to paint on the mask. So the mask is highlighted. We're going to paint with black. We got to get the paintbrush, and then that'll allow the underlayer to show up. If we click that underlayer, and it's going to mask out that layer we just did, and if we do that, then we can paint back in the cloud underneath it. Gotta be a little careful here so that it looks good. And sure enough, that's the original cloud. So I have that pretty good. Now I'm going to hit Control or Command E, combine that layer with the layer below it. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, sample this darker area here, then use the paintbrush tool and just paint in this area that was kind of messed up with the clone. So that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty reasonable. Alright, so then we're going to move over to the other area by the wing. Same deal. We're going to use the marquee tool, make a selection around that area, and hit Control J, Command J. That puts it on a separate layer. Let's eliminate the layer below it for a second. Let's magnify that up a little bit. Okay. So now, same principle is involved here. We're going to take the clone stamp tool and we're going to grab this area right here. Hit Alt, click. And I think this case, it's more like -50. I experimented around and got the right numbers. So let's take that, and then that looks pretty good. We're going to click on that. And I think we're going to have to reduce that maybe to -40 now. -40. And there we go. That looks pretty good. And then probably we'll try -30. To get the angle right. Yep, looks pretty good. There you go. Okay. Now, same deal. I'm going to mask that layer. Hit the little mask thing right here. Painting with the paintbrush tool. Paint with black. And then we're going to, got to make the layer below it highlighted so it shows up. And then we're going to paint over that to get rid of that blue sky that was there. You don't like that. So that's good enough for the time being. That I'm going to hit Control E, Command E, combine that with the layer below it. Then I'm going to sample with the eyedropper tool this white here from the clouds using the paintbrush. I'm just going to touch up this little area here that got a little artifact in it. I'm going to then sample with the eyedropper tool this red. Use the paintbrush, and I'm going to paint over this area here. So that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to zoom back out. And I'm going to put back all the layers. And there you go. Now this doesn't look very good here. What happened here? Oh, because of this. So what layer was that? Oh, here it is. So we just have to mask this layer out to clean this up. So I'm going to put a mask on this. I'm going to paint with black. Zoom in. And then we're just going to mask out that area. I'm going to make the paintbrush a little bit bigger by hitting the right bracket key. There you go. Okay. And now it's pretty much good. It's I don't like this. Was this thing here? Let's look here. Another problem here. So this layer also needs to be masked. Let's see which one that was. There it is. So we're going to mask this layer, put a little mask on it, paint with black. Too much. There you go, Joe. Centered, clouds behind, looks pretty good. The writing is all centered. I think it looks a tad better. I like it because the plane is pretty well centered. Came out good. You can't see any artifacts here. That looks pretty good. Sounds good, Joe. Take care.